The assumption is if the judge looked at that report and let her out, there was nothing in there to suggest she had some severe mental health condition that she was a harm to herself.
Well, I can't speak to the specifics of the report, but anytime that there are either medical, whether it's medical or behavioral issues, and people are either seeking treatment or going to seek treatment, those of course are factors that can be taken in consideration. But it's one where if you are seeing a treating physician, you must continue to see that treating physician. And this is information that of course must also be validated by CCP. So there will be no leaving of a home to seek any type of medical treatment if it is in fact not verified through CCP.
And she must submit, one of the conditions that she has to submit to drug and alcohol testing. How often will people be going to check on her?
That is, we defer to CCP and their expertise.
And do you know when she may bond out? Are you given any indication?
No, we have communicated with the families that we will make sure that they are aware when that has happened, and we will keep in touch with, we will keep in touch with the jail staff to know when that has happened. But as we indicated earlier, because the court has put in numerous conditions, there are certain things that must be complied with before she can be released.
And someone has to pay the full $25,000.
And part of that is paying that surety bond. That is correct.
And is that refunded at trial or something like that?
If she complies with what's happening, then the money can be kept by the bondsman because it's only 10%. However, generally speaking, if someone does not come to court, then that full amount of $25,000 is the responsibility of the bondsman. But we'll get to that when we get to that.
Wait, so her family only has to pay $2,500?
The law allows, if there's going to be, well, let me rephrase that. There are various ways that people can do what we call post bond. One of those ways of posting bond is utilizing a bondsman, which generally speaking, they will accept 10% of the full amount. Other people have also posted using property or paying some other amount as negotiated by a bondsman. Because remember, if it's a bondsman who signs off on the surety, then it becomes the bondsman's responsibility to make sure that the individual is obeying all the laws of the Commonwealth and will in fact come to court.
Is she at East or West, do you know?
It's probably for today's hearing, and probably because she was given an opportunity, she's likely being held next door.
And she'll bond out of here.
Probably, yes.
Is a GPS monitor essentially an ankle monitor?
Yes. That is the system that Henrico Sheriff's Office uses, yes.
When she bonds out, will she just be coming out the front door?
She could very well be. I can't speak to that. That's a sheriff's. That's a sheriff's action.
That next date coming up in May, will that be the trial?
That is what we call the preliminary hearing. And when we talk about how charges come forth, and we talk about felony charges coming forth, they can either be through a warrant where you have a preliminary hearing and then the matter is certified to circuit court, or you can have what's called a direct indictment and you go straight to circuit court. When you talk about the warrant, you have either the regular general district court or you have the jurisdiction of the juvenile and domestic. And because we're talking about minors as our victims, then we are talking about starting in juvenile court.
At the last bond appeal hearing, Allison mentioned there may be more charges forthcoming by March. What's the status on that?
I do believe that Ms. Martin, when she talked about March, she made that reference because to the court, that indicates that we have another grand jury. In Henrico County Circuit Court, we have grand jury every other month. So we just had grand jury in January. The next grand jury will be March. And as we have indicated to not only to the families, but to the general public, we are continuing to work on this investigation. So if there are more charges coming forward, we can, the attorneys involved in this case, including myself and Ms. Martin, we will talk about whether or not we believe it is more appropriate to do what's called a direct indictment, or do we think it's appropriate to figure out if we can combine charges for a preliminary hearing and issue warrants again, but have them all heard at the same time. But we're not at that point yet to determine what the timing of all that
Would
is.
that be a condition to revoke bond if more charges are coming?
So the law allows that bond conditions can be revisited if there is new information. And one of the things that was talked about this morning was whether or not additional charges could in fact be that new condition, or excuse me, new event that has happened, new circumstance. And it's we'll just have to see, because it could coincide with the timing of whether or not Ms. Strotman has been complying with the conditions. And a court could find that just because there are additional charges does not necessarily mean that we would hold her without bond, because she has proven to the court that she can follow the court's rules, but we'll just take it one step at a time.
With a direct indictment, does that mean police could go arrest her again and this kind of starts over?
If you know, so generally speaking, when we have had circumstances where we have had an individual who has been arrested on a charge and who has made bond and has been following the conditions, we normally will arrange them to turn themselves in, is what the term we use. We will arrange for them to come to court to have the paper served, and then the court could say that the conditions of the previous charge are now going to be placed for this particular charge.
So you're saying Jeff Everhart is going to be making sure Erin Strotman is complying with her bond?
I can assure you that when I was a defense attorney, and I would like to think for any of my colleagues who do defense attorneys, when the stakes are this high, you want your client to make sure that they are dotting every I's and crossing every T.